There's an old curse in Hollywood that says every video game adaptation is doomed to fail. For decades, we watched legendary franchises get butchered by terrible scripts, leaving a bitter taste in every fan's mouth. But luckily, every rule has its exception, and Netflix came crashing through the door to break that vicious cycle. We're talking about Castlevania. What they did here wasn't just take a classic 8-bit game about whipping skeletons and animate it. They turned the story into a gothic opera, violent, stylish, and surprisingly deep. Here, Dracula isn't just some generic monster waiting to be slain. He's a grieving widower who, in a totally John Wick-style rampage, declares war on all of humanity after losing the one thing he loved. It's a tale where the church is corrupt, the hero is a reluctant drunk, and morality is all shades of gray. Basically, this series proved that animation can be mature, bloody, and have a script that puts a lot of Hollywood blockbusters to shame. So get ready, because today on the channel, we're diving into the history of Castlevania. A courageous woman braves a field of skeletons to knock on the door of a gothic castle that makes the Addams family mansion look like a playground. This is Lisa, and she's looking to learn real medical science, fed up with her village's ignorance. The castle's owner is none other than Vlad Dracula. Instead of tearing her throat out, he's impressed by her audacity. There's instant chemistry, a bit of a Beauty and the Beast vibe, but with more test tubes and less singing. They strike a deal. She teaches him humanity, and he teaches her science. Cut to the ultimate tragedy. Lisa is burned the stake by a fanatical bishop who mistook her laboratory for witchcraft. Dracula returns from his travels to find his wife has been turned to ash. He goes full John Wick levels of rage. Appearing as a massive face in the flames, he delivers a Hollywood-style villain ultimatum. The humans have 1 year to make their peace with God, because after that, he's wiping everyone out.
What have you done to my wife? You have 1 year to make your peace and remove any marks you have made upon the land.
Alucard, the couple's son, tries to stop his father from committing genocide, but takes a brutal beating and is left severely wounded. A year passes, and the Archbishop, possessing the audacity of a corrupt politician, celebrates the church's success. The joy is short-lived. It starts raining blood, and Dracula's castle teleports into the middle of the city. An army of demons is unleashed, and the massacre begins, turning the city into a slasher horror movie. Far away, in a tavern, a drunken peasant named Boscia complains about life, blaming the Belmont family for everything. Meanwhile, a hooded figure in the corner listens in silence, looking like a man carrying a heavy secret. Boscia continues to harass the stranger and notices a crest on his cloak. It's the sigil of the Belmonts, the family excommunicated for allegedly dabbling in black magic. The drunk wants a fight and a confession. The stranger is Trevor Belmont, the last of his clan. Trevor tries to avoid the hassle, but he eventually has to throw hands with the bar crowd, proving he can scrap before heading out to find a place to sleep. The next day, Trevor reaches Gresset, a city looking like a set from The Walking Dead. Bodies everywhere and heads on. Since the gates are locked, he enters through the sewers, having his own Shawshank Redemption moment, just without the redemption and with a much worse smell. In town, he spends his last coin on some questionable jerky and hears rumors about a sleeping soldier in the catacombs who will save everyone. Wandering the streets, Trevor spots 2 priests acting more like mobsters than holy men. They are beating an old wise man, blaming his group, the Speakers, for the demon invasion. Trevor, tired of being a bystander, snaps his whip and goes full Indiana Jones. He takes a priest's finger and another surgical precision. After saving the old man, he learns the Speakers won't leave town because the elder's grandchild went into the catacombs looking for the legendary hero and vanished. Trevor, grumbling like Han Solo before doing the right thing, reluctantly accepts the mission to rescue the kid in exchange for the Speakers leaving before nightfall. In the catacombs, Trevor finds technology far ahead of its time. Pipes and fresh oil, looking like a level out of Tomb Raider. He barely has time to admire it before a massive Cyclops crashes the party. It's a tense fight, but Trevor settles it with pure skill. When the monster dies, the stone statue it was guarding comes to life. It's Sypha. She wants to keep looking for the sleeping soldier, but Trevor uses his grumpy Han Solo charm to convince her to head to the surface first. After returning the girl to her grandfather, Trevor is summoned by the bishop. The cleric not only admits he was responsible for Lisa's death, but swears he did the right thing. The man is completely delusional, believing he is the voice of God, and threatens Trevor with death if he doesn't disappear. Trevor returns to the Speakers and gives it to them straight: flee or die. They refuse to abandon the people. Trevor, huffing with the annoyance of having to be a hero hero, hides them underground and waits for the mob. When the priests kick in the door, Trevor finally sheds his cloak to reveal the Belmont crest on his chest, a classic Clark Kent to Superman reveal. He delivers an epic speech about duty, turns the priest's hands into Swiss cheese with his throwing knives, and brings the house down on his enemies. He causes chaos in the square to buy them time as the sun sets, and Dracula's army arrives for dinner. As chaos reigns in the streets, the bishop stays in the church, convinced he has plot armor, but his visitor isn't a priest, it's a giant blue demon. The creature delivers a brutal reality check. God isn't in that church because he's disgusted by what the bishop did to Lisa. The demon explains they are only there because of the bishop's own malice and, as a thank you, devours the cleric on the spot. Outside, Trevor is cornered, but saved by a wall of fire. Sypha appears on the rooftops, proving she's the Jean Grey of this universe. Trevor uses the distraction to turn the tide against the remaining priest, convincing the mob that the church is to blame for everything. The crowd, now revolted, dispatches the priest in the blink of an eye. The city now belongs to Trevor. He organizes the defense with military tactics using salt, holy water, and spears. The people of Gresset become the army from 300 and start slaughtering demons, with Sypha freezing everything in sight and Trevor working the whip. They kill the blue demon, but the floor collapses and the duo falls deep into the catacombs. Below, they wake the sleeping soldier. It's Alucard, Dracula's son. Trevor's instincts kick in, and he goes for the vampire's throat. The fight is insane, pure shonen anime choreography, until Sypha intervenes. Alucard explains he needed to recover to face his father again, with the prophecy fulfilled, a hunter, a speaker, and a vampire. The classic RPG trio is formed to save the world. We flash back to the moment the chaos began. Lisa was there, just being everyone's favorite doctor, until the bishop, the same one who became a demon snack, arrived with the cavalry accusing her of witchcraft. It's the catalyst for Dracula to go full Joker. Back in the present, the big bad is in a dark mood, staring into the fireplace like he's in a 2000s emo music video. He emerges from his brooding to give orders to his court and drops a bombshell. Hector and Isaac, two humans, will lead the war effort. The vampire generals are indignant, Mean Girls level, because they refuse to take orders from food. But Dracula shuts them down. A vampire only sees a human as a hamburger. To truly hate them, you need to be human, the only species that hates itself for sport. Hector confirms this by fondly remembering when he locked his abusive parents in the house and set it on fire. The vibes at the castle's HR department are definitely tense. Meanwhile, in Gresset, the city is cleaning up the mess. Sypha says goodbye to her family and hits the road with Trevor. Their dynamic is already pure rom-com, with her constantly calling him a brute. They go to pick up Alucard, who is found on the ground drawing his family in the dirt and moping. The dream team is finally together. Back at the castle, Garbrand tries to argue that the war is too messy, but Dracula ignores him, hits the magic button, and teleports the entire castle away, Gothic Star Trek style. The trio decides they need an inventory upgrade. Trevor's plan is simple: take everyone to the Belmont estate, which is basically a medieval bat cave filled with weapons and secrets his family hoarded before being cancelled by the church. It's time for a Lord of the Rings style road trip, just with more sarcasm. Back at Dracula's castle, things heat up with the arrival of Carmilla. If you like Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones, you'll know her vibe: manipulative, brilliant, and dangerous. She kicks the door down and questions Dracula in front of everyone, asking why on earth he didn't just turn his wife into a vampire to save her. Dracula is livid, but Carmilla has already moved into the villain's head rent-free with that psychological play. On the road, there's a deep campfire talk about how Dracula could have been the Elon Musk of his era, with all his scientific knowledge if he hadn't lost his mind. They are attacked by demons and wipe the floor with them, but one escapes to snitch back at the castle. We also learn that Isaac is disturbed on a terrifying level, whipping himself while remembering how he killed his former master. The snitch demon arrives at the castle and gives up the hero's location. Carmilla, being much sharper than the Meathead generals, realizes the truth instantly. They are going to raid the Belmont vault. The chess game has begun. We return to Hector's dark past. He was that weird kid who, instead of burying a pet, brought it back Pet Cemetery style. In the present, he's busy turning corpses into demons for the army when Carmilla shows shows up to play mental chess. She begins questioning Hector's blind loyalty. He thinks Dracula's plan is just to put humanity in its place, like a Thanos light, but Carmilla drops the truth. The vampire wants to wipe all life off the earth. She convinces Hector they need to protect the boss from himself, basically manipulating him into creating monsters loyal only to her. It's House of Cards with fangs. Meanwhile, the trio explores the basement of the Belmont estate. The place is massive, Harry Potter library levels, but filled with monster-killing gear. Trevor finds the legendary Morning Star Whip, the ultimate upgrade for his loadout. Alucard, however, feels the heavy vibe seeing the collection of vampire skulls Trevor's family kept as trophies. At the castle, Godbrand, the Viking general who only thinks about drinking and eating, notices the plot hole in Dracula's plan. If they kill all the humans, what will the vampires eat? He tries to reason with Dracula but gets brushed off. Carmilla takes the opening and pulls the Viking aside, explaining the boss is on a suicide mission and they need to take control before they starve. Godbrand wakes up fed up with drinking pig blood. The guy wants human fast food and decides to break the rules for an unauthorized snack in a nearby village. At the Belmont estate, the trio is messing with a magic mirror that works like medieval FaceTime. While Alucard tries to fix the mystical Wi-Fi, Sypha and Trevor engage in some awkward rom-com flirting. She even nicknames him Treffy, leaving Alucard to play the third wheel with his signature gothic sadness. Back at the castle, Carmilla continues brainwashing Hector, convincing the Forge Master to support a coup and move the castle to Brela. But Dracula isn't stupid. He visits Isaac, his other human general, and we see that this man's loyalty is on another level. Dracula admits he lied to Hector about sparing some humans, but with Isaac, he's honest. It's total extermination. Isaac's response? He agrees and swears eternal fealty. The temperature rises when Godbrand returns from his massacre and tries to recruit Isaac for the betrayal. Bad move. Isaac isn't playing games and kills the Viking on the spot without hesitation.
Thank you for showing me the truth.
While Hector is easily manipulated, Isaac proves he is the true fanatic of the cause. The villain team is officially fractured. Isaac performs an express funeral by tossing Godbrand's ashes into the wind and moves on. Meanwhile, Carmilla is already moving her chess pieces via magic mirror, gathering her troops for a surprise attack. In the Belmont library, it feels like a study group before finals. Sypha is in full nerd mode, devouring books and discovering that her people's oral tradition missed a lot of crucial details. Alucard takes the opportunity to complain about Trevor, calling him a self-destructive drunk. But Sypha defends her Treffy. Her focus shifts when she finds a locking spell that can stop Dracula's castle from teleporting around like Nightcrawler from the X-Men. On the villain's side, Hector, in his extreme innocence, convinces Isaac to support an attack on Brela. Isaac, loyal to the bone, tells Dracula everything. The Vampire King is in such a deep depression that he doesn't even care about tactical details. He just wants to watch the world burn and accepts the plan. That's when Carmilla drops the nice girl act. She corners Hector, making it clear he is now an accomplice to the coup and has nowhere to run. The guy has become a hostage of his own naivety. Back at the hero base, the piece ends. The monsters Hector created finally find the library and start breaching the magic door like an FBI raid. Sypha rushes to finish the spell, while Trevor prepares to do what he does best. All hell breaks out at the library entrance. While Sypha tries to hack the castle's teleportation system and Alucard holds the mirror, Trevor goes full medieval John Wick. He uses the Morning Star Whip to explode demons and take down giant monsters with the kind of style that would make any action director proud. In Brela, Dracula arrives and starts the terror, but Carmilla plays her ultimate trap card. She uses a zombie bishop whom she dragged along to bless the city's river. The result? The river becomes a massive tank of holy water. The bridges collapse and Dracula's army falls into the water, melting like the Wicked Witch of the West. It's a brilliant tactical massacre. Carmilla officially kidnaps Hector, treating him like a pet that no longer has an owner. But her victory is short-lived. Sypha finally cracks the code and starts pulling the entire castle through the mirror. It's an insane, mystical tug of war. The castle is dragged over the Holy River, which kills Carmilla's troops too, and vanishes before her eyes, leaving the vampire looking like she missed the last bus. The castle lands hard, crushing the ground right above the Belmont Library. Now the final boss is literally on the hero's roof, ready for the climax. The trio tries to leave the library, but the stairs are rubble. Sypha improvises an ice elevator, very frozen, and to avoid getting the valuable books wet, she launches the frozen pillar away. At the castle entrance, the brawl begins. Trevor takes the tactical lead, while Alucard turns into a white wolf and starts ripping throats with support from the mage and the hunter. It's such a violent massacre that soon only the night creatures are left. Inside, Isaac swears loyalty unto death, but Dracula makes an unexpected move. He decides the Forge Master deserves to live and throws his friend into a magic mirror, exiling him to a random desert, like a forced trip to Tatooine. Isaac is left screaming in the sand, furious at being saved. The final boss fight begins. Dracula tanks whip cracks to the face and sword strikes like they're mosquito bites. He launches a massive fireball that separates the group, forcing a direct father-son duel. Alucard tries to argue that his father is writing the world's longest side note, but he gets beaten and thrown through multiple walls, Man of Steel style. The fight ends in Alucard's childhood bedroom. Seeing the toys and the nostalgia, Dracula freezes. It hits him. He is killing the only living memory of his wife. He gives up the fight and lets his son drive a stake through heart. Trevor arrives to finish it with a clean and Sypha incinerates the remains. All that's left of the Dark Lord is a wedding ring and a heavy silence. With the castle permanently parked on top of the Belmont Library, the group assesses the damage. Alucard planned to return to his coffin, but Trevor surprises him by handing over the deed to the Belmont estate. He suggests Alucard protect the knowledge there, basically turning the place into Professor Xavier's X-Mansion. Meanwhile, in the middle of the desert, Isaac is drinking water when some bandits try to enslave him. Terrible idea. The Forge Master wipes out the entire squad and raises them as zombies, already building his own army. The man is already fast-tracking his revenge season pass. Sypha and Trevor have a positive relationship talk. She admits she's addicted to the adrenaline and that her old nomad life is too boring now. Sypha convinces Trevor that he's no longer a useless drunk and has become a real man. The two end up holding hands, assuming power couple status and heading off for new adventures in their wagon. Far away, Carmilla drags a shackled Hector, ready to fill the power vacuum left by Dracula. But the final scene is heartbreaking. Alucard is left alone in the massive castle. He sits in his father's chair and breaks down in tears, remembering his mother and the happy childhood that was destroyed. The world is saved, but the hero ended up in a depressive version of Home Alone. A month after the apocalyptic showdown, life goes on, but the vibe has changed. Alucard is living his lonely Batman moment in the giant mansion, trying to get used to the silence and depression, missing his friends. Meanwhile, Trevor and Sypha are on a supernatural-style road trip, traveling by wagon and hunting the monsters left over from the war. They arrive in a small town full of mysteries. Trevor tries to make some coin from the local judge, but the mood sours when some monks led by a guy named Sala appear. This guy has serious horror movie cult leader energy and mentions his group worship Dracula. Sypha, who isn't slow, immediately flags the danger. Across the map, Carmilla finally arrives home in Styria, dragging Hector in chains. The Forge Master is in a deplorable state, very Theon Greyjoy, Reek from Game of Thrones. He's thrown into a cold cell, naked and humiliated, surviving on moldy bread. Carmilla reunites with her sisters, Lenore, Striga, and Marana. It's basically the vampire squad. Carmilla tries to justify her long absence, but the others only care about results. Back in town, Trevor makes the classic sitcom husband mistake. After getting a free beer, he says it's better than sex. Naturally, Sypha is livid, and a chill settles over the couple's paradise. Isaac isn't messing around. He reaches a city and visits a blind dealer in a scene reminiscent of Daredevil to get a magic mirror. His goal is singular: locate Hector. The mirror shows his rival is imprisoned in Carmilla's castle, and Isaac decides it's time to travel. However, the city guard tries to stop him from leaving. Bad choice. Isaac activates John Wick mode mixed with The Walking Dead, summons his demons, and massacres everyone, turning the city into hell before catching a boat to his next destination. The man is a revenge machine. At the vampire castle, Carmilla reveals her Pinky and the Brain-style plan: take over Eastern Europe, which is currently leaderless.
But if we look east, we see an entire region fractured and devastated by Dracula's actions.
And turn the region into a giant human cattle pen to feed vampires. The problem is they need Hector's monsters, and he won't cooperate after being tortured. That's when Lenore, the group's diplomat, volunteers to manipulate the prisoner's mind. Back in the city of weird monks, the mysterious Saint Germain recognizes Trevor. He wants access to the sex library and, to get in, shows the leader Sala that he knows a lot about dark secrets. To wrap up, Alucard notices intruders in the woods, but they aren't enemies. They are two Japanese Japanese hunters, Taka and Sumi. They ask the blonde vampire to be their Mr. Miyagi and teach them how to kill vampires. Alucard, starved for company, agrees to open his dojo. Trevor and Sypha are still trying to crack the mystery of the town, and the judge decides to come clean. He explains that some time ago, a monster attacked, but instead of killing it, the monks took the creature inside the church. After weird green lights and lots of noise, the monks came out completely off their rockers. Basically, the priory has become a hotel for weirdos and fanatics. Meanwhile, Isaac is having a deep heart-to-heart with the ship's captain, the captain who feels like he stepped right out of an Avatar. The last airbender talk with the best uncle questions why Isaac is so hell-bent on continuing Dracula's mission. He gives him a reality check. If Isaac hates humanity so much, why not use his powers to teach something good instead of just killing everyone? The Forge Master is rattled, but his rage still wins out. At the vampire castle, Lenore visits Hector in his cell with some food. The guy is starving and tries to be clever. He grabs the vampire, thinking he has a physical advantage. Big mistake. Lenore activates her powers, turns into a swarm of bats, and gives him a humiliating beating. Hector ends up on the floor, broken, learning the hard way that the diplomat hits as hard as any warrior. At Dracula's castle, Alucard is playing tour guide for the Japanese hunters, losing track of how much time he spent in isolation. Taka and Sumi share their story. They were slaves to a vampire named Cho, but instead of giving up, they studied her every move. Batman-style contingency planning. When she went to war, they escaped, and now they want Alucard to train them so no one else has to suffer like they did.
You need instruction, perhaps one or two new weapons, maybe learn a little magic.
Magic? Really?
Magic.
In Styria, sisters Striga and Marana have a relationship talk about Carmilla's plan. They realize that conquering the world is easy, but holding it is hard, and they start to doubt if their leader's megalomaniacal plan is actually sustainable. In prison, Hector's humiliation continues. Lenore offers him an apple in exchange for information, but Hector, totally broken, only asks for shoes. He admits that Dracula's great reward for him was just to be the last human to die. Lenore leaves the question in the air. Is it worth being loyal to a boss who didn't care about him? In town, Saint Germain finally enters the monastery and finds the place in a state of total decay and rot. He confronts Sala about the symbol they use, revealing it's the alchemical sign for sulfur in hell. The monk, far from being offended, is thrilled by the news. To close, Isaac arrives in Genoa and tries to be diplomatic, but the guards block his path with the subtlety of an elephant in a china shop. The result? The Forge Master unleashes his demons and starts yet another massacre. Trevor is wandering through the forest and decides to pull a Gollum, talking to himself by the edge of a lake, until the judge appears out of nowhere to cut the crazy talk short. The judge reveals he was once a big shot in the capital but returned to Lindenfeld after a successful stint at court. Back in town, they stumble upon some bizarre symbols on the walls. The judge is convinced this isn't just your average vandalism. There's something dark brewing. Meanwhile, at the monastery, Saint-Germain takes advantage of the monk's distraction to play spy. He uses a glowing magical stone, basically a supernatural GPS, that leads him to the basement, but before he can head down, Sala, the monk's leader, catches him red-handed. Germain pulls the classic looking for the bathroom excuse, and incredibly, it works. Outside, Sypha finally corners Germain and reveals she knows he's a magician. They analyze the symbol on the wall and Germain turns pale. It's high-level alchemy representing Saturn, and worse, redemption through hell. At the tavern, the trio regroups, and Germain comes clean to Trevor. He's searching for the infinite corridor, essentially a Doctor Strange-style multiverse where he lost someone important. The portal is beneath the monastery and he's going in whatever the cost. Over at Dracula, Alucard's castle, the Dhampir is giving fencing lessons to Taka and Sumi. He tries to teach them that fighting vampires requires keeping your distance, but the Japanese duo is clever and with a stroke of luck, manages to take down the master.
Get him, Sumi!
In Styria, Lenore decides to take Hector for a walk, but with one condition: he has to wear a leash. It's giving off a major gothic 50 Shades of Grey vibe. In the courtyard, she gives him a masterclass in psychological manipulation, convincing Hector that Carmilla is actually the good guy for not wanting to wipe out humanity like Dracula did. Hector, suffering from max-level Stockholm syndrome, starts to think she might have a point. Carmilla and Striga watch from the sidelines. Striga is worried about the logistics of sourcing human bodies for the army, but Carmilla Carmilla trusts that her sister will break the Forge Master, and it seems to have worked. Lenore moves Hector to a VIP room, complete with a real bed and magic books. The guy is totally smitten, falling for the trap, hook, line, and sinker. In Lindenfeld, Trevor and Sypha decide Saint Germain is a stand-up guy and agree to help him break into the Infinite Corridor. Speaking of which, the aristocrat has a psychedelic nightmare. He travels through dimensions filled with giant robots and spaceships, like something out of Star Wars or The Matrix, and sees the woman he's looking for, but she shuts the door in his face. Far from all this, Isaac is by a campfire having a deep heart-to-heart with one of his demons, Fly-Size. The monster reveals he was once a Greek philosopher who betrayed his friends to save himself from the church, only to end up in hell anyway. The moral of the story? In hell, he learned to love sin. Isaac sits there listening with the look of someone seriously rethinking his career choices. At Dracula's castle, Alucard decides it's time for a school field trip and takes Taka and Sumi to the Belmont Hold. It's basically the Batcave, but filled with whips and ancient books. The plan is to gear up the new generation of hunters, turning the duo into the supernatural Winchesters, but with swords. Meanwhile, in Lindenfeld, Saint Germain continues his investigation and finds a book in the church that's been more redacted than a classified CIA document. Precisely the pages on how to bring someone back from hell are missing. Sala, the monk's leader, plays dumb, but Germain realizes this is a recent job. The tension in town is reaching a breaking point. Trevor, having no patience for diplomacy, handles things with his fists, capturing a monk and dragging him to the judge's house. Speaking of the judge, the guy is compulsively washing his hands, giving off Major Lady Macbeth or suspense movie villain hiding bodies in the backyard vibes. Sypha, always the sharpest in the room, has already figured out that the monks are prepping a heavy magical ritual. Far away, Isaac reaches an abandoned city and finds Miranda, a blind old woman in a rocking chair. But don't let the looks fool you. She's no helpless granny. She's a forge master, like a dark side Yoda, and warns him that a magician has enslaved the people in a nearby city. The kicker? This magician has a massive transmission mirror. In other words, Isaac just unlocked fast travel to get to Hector much sooner. Back in Styria, Striga is stressed over war plans, but Marana tries to calm things down with a tender couples moment until Carmilla bursts in and kills the mood completely. Meanwhile, Lenore moves forward with her plan to dominate Hector's mind. She visits his cell, shows off the Council of Sisters ring, which works like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings, but make it fashion, and drops some heavy philosophy on vampirism. Hector, lonely and impressionable, falls for her let's run away together pitch. Back at the castle, the relationship between Alucard and his students starts to sour. Taka and Sumi are getting paranoid, thinking Alucard is hiding secrets. It's creating a very tense Big Brother eviction night atmosphere. In Lindenfeld, all hell breaks loose. Saint Germain encounters a night creature in the church basement and runs to warn Trevor and Sypha. The aristocrat drops a bombshell. The monks don't just want to bring Dracula back, they want to create the Rebus, a bizarre alchemical fusion, the ultimate magical Frankenstein. Trevor, Sypha, Germain, and the judge form their own suicide squad and march toward the monastery. What they don't know is that Sala is communicating with Isaac through the creature in the basement, warning him that the battle begins at sundown. It's showtime. In Lindenfeld, the Last Supper vibe quickly turns into an apocalyptic firestorm. The marked houses begin to burn and demons pour out of the church to join the party. Saint Germain freezes up, shaking like a leaf, and Sypha has to pull a Frozen-style Elsa ice barrier to save his skin, while Trevor thrashes the monsters with his whip. The chaos escalates when a portal in the basement reveals the ultimate prize, Dracula and Lisa, locked in an embrace in hell. Meanwhile, in Styria, Hector thinks he's hit the jackpot. In the middle of a hookup with Lenore, he swears eternal loyalty, but the vampirus is sly and uses his moment of weakness to slip a ring onto his finger. Now he's trapped in a lifelong magical contract that makes a student loan look like child's play. Isaac is playing a macabre version of Sim City. He invades a tower where a wizard is controlling the entire city with a hypnotic green light. Using his own monsters to balance the odds, Isaac climbs the tower by force. The wizard tries to trap him in the light, but the Forge Master has no time for talk. He the guy up and releases the people from their trance, though release involves a fatal fall from a massive height. At the castle, Alucard's loneliness seems to end when Taka and Sumi show up in his room for a party of 3. But just when the Dhampir thinks he's living a dream, he wakes up in a nightmare. The duo betrays his trust and binds him to the bed with magic, trying to force the castle's secrets out of him. Isaac, now master of the domain, finds mirror fragments that form a giant teleporter. He decides to spare the city, perhaps thinking of future recruits for his personal army. In Styria, Lenore does an unboxing of her new toy for her sisters. The ring ensures that all of Hector's creatures obey any member of the council. Hector is livid at becoming a gourmet slave, but Lenore promises him a comfortable life with a soft bed and food, essentially treating him like a pampered pet. Lindenfeld becomes literal hell on earth. Saint Germain realizes the portal is the gateway to the infinite corridor. He pulls a Legolas, climbs the main monster, stabs a crystal into its eye, and dives into the portal after the woman he seeks, closing the passage behind him and leaving Trevor and Sypha to do the cleanup. Sala the monk tries to escape and stabs the judge, only to fall into a spike trap set by his own victim, and here comes the gut punch. Trevor and Sypha discover that the noble judge murdered children for sport, keeping their shoes as trophies like a serial killer from Criminal Minds. Sypha burns his house down in disgust and leaves town traumatized, realizing that sometimes humans are worse than demons. At the castle, the betrayal has a brutal ending. Alucard uses his telekinetic sword to Taka and Sumi's throats. Alone and heartbroken, he impales their bodies at the castle entrance as a warning. He embraces the darkness, officially becoming Dracula's heir. The happily ever after got lost in the mail. 6 weeks have passed since the Lindenfeld mess, and Trevor and Sypha are living life on hardcore mode. They're on an insane demon hunting marathon, facing everything from skeleton armies in a dead forest to crazy cultists who think murder is the key to waking Dracula. Basically, their life has become a procedural episode of Supernatural, just without the cool car. In the middle of this chaos, Sypha proves that hanging out with a Belmont has its side effects. The once proper girl lets out a massive swear word. Trevor is shocked, but she pins the blame on him, and rightfully so. She's swearing like a sailor now, which is both hilarious and worrying. They also run into fanatics worshipping death itself in an attempt to pull the big vampire back from hell. Tired and filthy, they reach Targo Vista and take down 2 vampires, Slodek and Ivan, who were killing civilians while searching for magical tools. Sypha feels the weight of the deaths, but Trevor is running on fumes, complaining that the world still revolves around him even after he saved humanity. Unknown to them, they are being watched by Varney and Ratko. Varney is an old-school vampire, an original member of Dracula's court, and he's pissed because his life has gone downhill, and no one respects his authority. Meanwhile, at the castle, Alucard is living his I Am Legend moment. He decorates the entrance with bodies and leaves the house looking like a total wreck. He receives a message from a dead knight asking the Alucard for help. But what really breaks him is looking in the mirror and realizing that, with the grime and the depression, he's becoming the spitting image of Trevor Belmont.
Oh my god. I'm turning into Belmont.
He's officially hit rock bottom. In Styria, Hector seems to have gotten a captive upgrade. No more cages. He walks around in fancy clothes and lives a life of leisure. But he's playing it Prison Break style, using his freedom to hide magical devices in the castle walls and using a mirror to chat with Varney, revealing he's playing 4D chess against the vampiresses. Lenore shows up to check his progress on a new forge hammer. Their dynamic is weird, flirtatious, yet manipulative. Hector thanks her for keeping Carmilla off his back, but Lenore isn't stupid. She warns Carmilla she doesn't trust the Forge Master. Carmilla, for her part, goes full the brain and reveals her modest plan: global domination, because taking just a piece of land is for small-minded people. In Targo Vista, Trevor and Sypha's peace is short-lived. They are ambushed by Varney's monsters in a barn, but are saved by knights led by Zamfir. She's protecting the city's royalty in the underground and needs help. While Zamfir chases down the fleeing villains, Trevor does what any RPG player would do. He ignores the drama and loots the bodies of the dead soldiers. He finds a glowing magic stone, and despite Sypha's warning that it's trouble, he pockets it. After all, if you're already in the rain, another lightning strike won't hurt. Isaac continues his philosophical journey, now literally talking to his demons. Fly-Size questions why they're playing SimCity, rebuilding cities instead of killing everyone. Isaac, in a total Zen vibe, offers the monster a piece of fruit. The monster tastes it and has a flashback to his human life, proving even demons have feelings. The Forge Master makes it clear clear he's done with mere revenge. He wants to build a future. He's like a politician on the campaign trail, but with an army from hell. Shortly after, his magic phone rings. It's Varney, asking for help to resurrect Dracula. Isaac, who is now his own boss, shuts the vampire down and tells him to get lost. Varney is furious, but decides to go ahead with the plan alone. In Styria, Striga and Morana are out in the field, and reality hits hard. Striga dons her day armor, making her look like a Dark Souls boss or a berserker Wonder Woman, and Matt is a group of rebel peasants.
That's right! Idiot fucking livestock!
But after the carnage, she has an existential crisis. They realize Carmilla's war is endless, and they'll never have peace. The conversation is cut short by Carmilla calling via mirror, Hector's work is done. Meanwhile, in Tardo Vista, Trevor and Sypha wander the ruins. Trevor decides to play real-life Minecraft, and combines the magic stone he found with a dagger, creating a new weapon. Zamfir appears asking for help, but the dynamic duo is tired of side quests and refuses to be pawns in someone else's game. Still in the ruins, Trevor has an epiphany. He's tired of just reacting to chaos like a firefighter putting out blazes. He decides that from now on, he and Sypha will set the rules. It's the moment the player stops following the main quest marker and decides to do whatever they want. Cut to Demesti, where Alucard arrives on horseback to save the day. Only one detail: he's fighting in drunken master mode, but without the mastery. Even slowed down by wine, he manages to defeat the night creatures. The village leader, Greta, thanks him but doesn't let him off the hook. The guy reeks of booze and has a terrible reputation. Alucard, lonely and depressed, agrees to help despite the lecture. Suddenly, Saint Germain emerges from a latrine. Yes, the fancy guy literally pops out of the sewer. He tells a sob story about trying to find his beloved in the infinite corridor. Flashbacks show he met a mysterious alchemist who gave him an impossible mission: create a rebus, a Full Metal Alchemist-style soul fusion, to control the portal. Basically, Saint Germain has become Anakin Skywalker, willing to commit any atrocity for love. He reveals he's in league with Varney to create this hybrid being. In the present, he manipulates Alucard, convincing the damper to take the villagers back to Dracula's castle. Alucard agrees, dropping a cynical line, realizing with horror that depression and drinking are turning him into Trevor Belmont. The trek to Dracula's castle continues, and the mood is heavier than at the Walking Dead season finale. Alucard leads the refugees, but Greta is suspicious of Saint Germain. The guy tries to play it off like he's just a common scholar, but she can smell the magic a mile away. It's that classic moment where the group's wise man rolls a 1 on a charisma check and nobody buys his story. Meanwhile, in Styria, Hector has perfected his craft. He's forging demons with a hammer, Thor style. Lenore shows up, but the romance has soured. She's realized Carmilla has become a generic 007 villain who wants to rule the world, leaving no room for diplomacy. Hector, surprisingly, becomes the relationship therapist and points out that Carmilla manipulated Lenore exactly the way Dracula did to him. It's the harsh realization that the toxic boss doesn't actually care about the employees. Back on the road, Alucard has to carry the team. An acid-spitting demon attacks, and the damper handles it solo to make sure Greta doesn't become dinner. They finally reach the castle, and Saint Germain starts drooling over the Belmont archives, already imagining the power held within. In Targo Vista, Sypha is done with being passive. She sees Zamfir trying to tax food from starving people and puts a stop to it, assuming community leadership. But while Trevor looks for secret passages, a monster attacks and plants a tracker on Zamfir, like a demonic AirTag. To top off the tension, Isaac finally addresses his army. His mindset has shifted. Revenge is too small. Now the goal is total conquest. Things just got real in Styria. Isaac opens a Doctor Strange-style portal and dumps hundreds of night creatures directly into Carmilla's base. It's absolute chaos, with vampires and demons slaughtering each other in every hallway. But she realizes this is an Avengers Endgame level invasion, and she's outnumbered. In the confusion, Lenore tries to save Hector, but the Forge Master has other plans. He traps the vampiress in a magic cage to protect her and reveals he's been playing 4D chess this whole time. When Isaac enters the room, Hector accepts his fate and offers his life in exchange for Lenore's safety. But Isaac surprises everyone. He's had a shonen anime redemption arc and decided he's over revenge. Instead of killing his rival, he helps Hector cut off his own finger to escape Carmilla's control ring. Free at last, Hector shuts down the demons defending the castle, clearing the path for Isaac to go straight to the final boss. The fight between Isaac and Carmilla is brutal, as she takes on an entire army alone, but the vampiress is too proud. When she realizes she's lost, she decides to rage quit life and herself, exploding and taking the top of the tower with her. Striga and Marana, seeing the explosion from afar, decide they aren't paid enough for this and vanish into the horizon to live happily ever after. In the aftermath, the survivors have a deep talk. Isaac and Hector agree that reviving Dracula is a terrible idea. The big guy deserves his rest. Isaac decides that instead of living in the past, he's going to build a new future. Happy ending. For now, Ratko finally gets tired of carrying the team and ditches Varney, going on a solo brutal rampage against the Royal Guard. Meanwhile, our heroes Trevor and Sypha are taken by Zamfir on a tour of the underground, which looks like Scrooge McDuck's vault in decay. Trevor, with that RPG player who loves loot instinct, finds an exotic blade and explains to Sypha that its cross shape is designed to glitch a vampire's vision. Yes, there's science in the hunt. The mood sours completely when they reach the royal chamber and find the monarchs dead and mummified. Zamfir, in a total state of delusion, swears they're just taking a magical nap and will wake up to save the day. Sypha tries to bring the woman back to reality, but it's hard to argue with madness. Meanwhile, at Dracula's castle, Saint Germain is playing the traitor, planting magic glyphs right under the nose of Alucard, who is distracted playing with the kids and impressing Greta. The episode closes with max tension. Ratko invades the underground hideout ready for a massacre, while an armada of monsters surrounds the castle, bringing a bizarre body for the alchemist's ritual. All-out brawl on two fronts. In Targo Vista, Ratko proves he wasn't bluffing and gives Trevor a run for his money.
I'm tired. And you shouldn't play with your food.
While Varney ignores the fight to go looking for a magic mirror. Priorities, right? At the castle, the refugees try to hold the line against demons with improvised weapons. Alucard jumps in to carry the team, but a flame-throwing monster forces everyone to retreat inside. The nasty surprise is waiting indoors. Saint Germain blocks Alucard with a magic barrier and reveals his mad scientist plan. He wants to fuse the souls of Dracula and Lisa into one body, creating a rebus, a sort of divine Frankenstein. Alucard is livid but can't touch the traitor. Back in the underground, Zamfir has her redemption moment. She decides to tank the damage, throwing herself onto Ratko's blade to pin him down. Trevor takes the assist and finishes the vampire with his new weapon. Varney, slippery as ever, finds the mirror and bails to the castle. Trevor and Sypha, with no time to plan and in a suicide maneuver, jump through the portal after him, heading straight into the eye of the storm. All hell is breaking loose at Alucard's castle. It's monsters everywhere, like a Black Friday sale in hell. Alucard and Greta are barely holding on until the heavy reinforcements arrive. Trevor and Sypha join the fray, and finally, the trio is reunited. Their chemistry is so on point, it's like they never left, fighting in sync like the Avengers. While the brawl rages, Saint Germain is focused on opening the portal, but then comes the Scooby-Doo plot twist. Varney peels off the mask and reveals he was never just some random vampire. He is death itself. The Reaper's plan is to use Saint Germain to bring Dracula and Lisa back in one body, creating the Rebus, a divine Frankenstein monster to end humanity and feed death forever. The trio tries to stop it but is blocked by Dragon. The big guy is a tough boss fight, forcing the three to crumble their abilities to take down the enemy tank. With the path clear, they face death. Saint Germain realizes his mistake, repents, and helps stop the fusion, but dies in the process. It's Trevor versus Death, who is now giant and buffed. The Belmont realizes it's all or nothing. He says goodbye to Sypha in that dramatic war movie style and heads into the 1v1 against the entity. The fight is insane, Dark Souls level. Trevor takes a beating but uses the suicidal magic dagger in one last desperate attack. He stabs Death in the face, triggering a white light explosion that sweeps the entire castle, sacrificing himself to save the day. In Styria, the mood is like a post-party hangover. Hector and Lenore share a final bottle of wine in a very melancholy vibe. Lenore drops some philosophy about how vampires hate change and decides she doesn't want to live trapped in a golden cage. In a poetic and tragic moment, she walks into the sun and turns to ash, leaving Hector alone to write the memoirs of all this chaos. Back at Dracula's castle, reconstruction is in full swing, extreme makeover style. Alucard is becoming the village dad and suggests founding a permanent community there, named Belmont. Sypha, who reveals she's pregnant, thinks about leaving, but Greta and Alucard convince her to stay and raise the baby in this new home. Just when everything seems settled, a horse approaches carrying a surprise. Trevor Belmont. The madman is alive. Apparently, Saint Germain had one last act of kindness and saved him before dying. The reunion is a classic. Sypha calls him an idiot and cries. The trio is whole and happy, with Alucard finally feeling that everything will be okay. But wait for the post-credits scene. In some random village in the middle of nowhere, we see Dracula and Lisa alive and well at an inn. No one knows how they came back, not even them, but they've decided not to look a gift horse in the mouth. The couple decides not to return to the castle so they don't mess up Alucard's life, choosing instead to enjoy this second chance in a romantic, peaceful retirement. And so, everyone got their happy ending, even the Lord of Darkness.